Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful in Edmonton and around the world. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Is that bells ringing in the background, Bruce? Is
Yep,
that your...
that's the doorbell. Per later.
Okay, all right.
I get all the packages because the front door is right out there. None of them are for me. I just get them. I receive
I
them. I don't actually get them. If you follow me.
Every husband, in North America knows the feeling and is nodding their head right now, Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
The
Well,
Oilers,
there's
go ahead.
there's two kids in the basement also, so everything is for somebody else.
I see.
So it is. So it is. I don't need any
Uh,
more stuff anyway. I got lots of stuff.
don't we all? So
Hmm.
say we all.
The great George Carlin says, "Get your junk out of here so I can put my stuff there."
Now again, we're trying to go live, but it seems like I don't know. I don't know, Bruce. I do not know. I have no faith in this whole
Okay.
thing.
Well,
Hopefully, it's going to work out one of these days. But
if it doesn't work, then let's do a trial run in another spot with maybe Craig involved and see if we can work through what the secret handshake
yeah,
is.
I thought I'd done that already.
Hmm.
Oh, here we go, Bruce. We are live.
Sweet.
We are live, my friend.
Live and highly professional at this point. Maybe we should start talking about the hockey game.
Maybe we should stop going live. This is this is our two good things, two bad things, and two numbers. And because it was a 4-3 Oilers win, I'm going to we're going to do two good things each, and I'm just going to tweet out this link, Bruce, right now. All right.
Go for it.
All right. So why don't you start off with a good thing as I take care of this business?
Sure, I'm going to start with a good thing. I'm going to single out a couple of Oilers veterans, but my first one that I'm going to single out is Alex Chason, who had a very successful trip to his hometown, Montreal, scoring his 100th career assist and 200th career point on the same play in the game on Monday. And this afternoon, he followed up with his 101st career goal, followed by his 100th career assist. Now, there's a balanced scorer for you. And just some good, hard, intelligent grinding. And that's what Alex Chason brings pretty much every time. You know what you're going to get out of Alex Chason. And it's not necessarily going to be pulsating, exciting, uh, exciting both ways hockey. He takes care of business in his own end, and he grinds the boards and he grinds the tough areas. And he got his goal just basically a half decent play where he cut across the slot and held the puck and he shot it and he got a bit of a bounce and tied the game at 1-1. And I actually liked his assist more where on the power play where Chason does a lot of his best work where Connor McDavid shoveled the puck into the crease and nobody could find it. And it was goalie was looking for it, two or three halves, couple of Oilers, and it was Chason who got a stick in and managed to poke it free and across the uh, Royal Road to Leon Draisaitl, who was hanging around on the other side, and he just punched it home from there. But it was originally they called it unassisted because I think they thought the Montreal scorers thought the Montreal defender Evans had cleared it out of there. But I saw it all along as Chason's play. And certainly the puck went to a place where Chason would want it to go and where Evans wouldn't want it to go, onto Leon Draisaitl's stick 5 feet from the net. So I think they got it right. It took them a while to get the scoring play, and Chason finished up then with a goal and assist, and I thought an overall pretty solid performance. Couple of shots, couple of hits, and he was one Oiler who didn't take shortcuts today, and I thought there was quite a number of them who did. But we'll leave that for later in the conversation if it's even
Well,
worth mentioning at all.
it was Edmonton's A team against Montreal's B team, right? Like it was just
In
such a
theory.
weird kind of game, was it not? It was a it just it was like I was grading this game, Bruce, and honestly, at times I was having a little bit of a hard time concentrating on it. So,
You weren't the only one. There's quite a few players
yes.
that had that issue also.
Okay, Bruce, we got the comments coming. You can go to yourself if you want to get another split screen going there, Bruce.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Zigfield says hi, David and Bruce. Hi,
Okay.
Zigfield. Uh, so we're getting the comments, so you can read
Mm.
them as we go along here. Okay, my good thing, my first good thing, Bruce, is the Oilers' physical play. Although it wasn't a particularly intense game, the Oilers threw some really hard hits in that game, including one by Chase on the boards on Ben Sherratt.
Oh
And
right.
I particularly like it, Bruce, when the Montreal villains, who they're physical players who aren't really villains, they're just their physical
Hmm.
players. Some of them maybe are a little bit villainous now and then, like the odd slew foot by Philip Deneau on Leon Draisaitl comes to mind, or the repeated cross checks from Shea Weber are a bit villainous. But Edmonton got theirs back a little bit tonight, and I really enjoyed that. On the lists, there was the chase on hit on Sherratt. Kulikov nailed Corey Perry on a pinch play, which I liked. Larson blasted Arturi Lekkonen with a good hit. Darnell Nurse also caught Corey Perry. It's almost knee on knee, that one. It was Perry made a move at the last second, but Nurse got him pretty good, lower body on Perry to wipe him out. And perhaps my favorite was more of the same kind of meanish streak we've been seeing from Connor McDavid lately. Four cross checks in a row, which is apparently legal now in the NHL. Bruce, you can hammer a guy with four cross checks in his back and knock him to the ice, and that's not a penalty in the NHL anymore.
Hmm.
So McDavid is taking advantage of this rule change, and he hammered Thomas Tatar to the ice with that. So not an intense game, not a physical game in general, but I did really enjoy those nasty plays by the Oilers on the bad guys, the Montreal Canadiens. And to me, the Canadiens have kind of taken the place of the Vancouver Canucks as the team with a lot of agitators and hitters. The
Hmm.
old Canucks in the early 2010s. Anaheim Ducks more recently with Bieksa and Kessler, players like that. Montreal's got a lot of those players. Most of them were sitting tonight, fortunately. And Edmonton took their pound of flesh. What's your second good thing, Bruce?
I'm
You like
going to
on
single
him?
out another veteran, Dmitry Kulikov. I thought he had a pretty solid game today. I thought he was well. He got an assist with a good headman pass that led to the chase on goal, and uh, I thought he made a really great defensive stop that I thought saved looked like an all sure goal. I think it was Corey Perry that was trying to stuff it in. And I thought this was the game where he was first time I think that I would say this. I thought he had a stronger game than Adam Larson did on that pairing. I think
Yeah, fair enough.
carrying Kulikov to a small degree. It's like 55-45 or 60-40. It's not like one good guy and one terrible guy. But today I thought Kulikov stepped up and put in a pretty solid day's work. I know that he had numbers, couple hits, and that block shot assist.
I agree, Bruce. Larson was fine. He did have that third period turnover that Cole Caulfield scooped up and then went around McLeod, who stumbled on the play, and Caulfield got a very difficult shot on net. So Adam Larson
Right.
didn't keep his clean sheet as he usually does, which is no major mistakes on grade A chances against, a clean sheet, and he did not succeed this game at that. Maybe we'll talk a little. I'll just write down this note. Maybe we'll talk a little later about Larson's potential contract, Bruce. I don't know if we've talked about that yet. My
Hmm.
uh, my second good thing was Leon Draisaitl, and he started out kind of slow, but man, did he ever come on in this game? He just made some, he won the game essentially for the Oilers with that overtime play. It was just such a fantastic play. But there were some plays before then that I want to focus on. Um, the power play goal. Is it the second power play goal that the Oilers scored? Let me just check here, Bruce.
He scored. He scored it.
Yeah, He scored the scramble goal on the power play,
Hmm.
which was really earned in a lot of ways by Chason, I think, with his grinding at the net and McDavid having the smarts to throw it in there at the net during a moment of chaos. But Leon scored that goal, put it in the net, which is always it's a pretty major accomplishment in the NHL. It's the hardest thing to do is score a goal, and he did there. In late in the third period, though, Bruce, he almost won it there. It was the puck goes into Montreal's end, and Leon gets in a puck battle with Yoel Armia of the Montreal Canadiens. Essentially, uh, throws him to the ice with his arm and puck protection, just by just the strength of the thrust of his puck protection and his arm, and there was no penalty there at all. It was an honest play, but he just cast off Armia, chucks him to the ice, and put the puck back to Tyson Barrie, who set up Darnell Nurse in the slot, and Nurse put it off the post. It was a great shot by Nurse. Typical. We can say this now. A typically fantastic Darnell Nurse shot. But it all started off with just a ginormous puck battle win by Leon Draisaitl. One of the best puck battle wins of the year. It's 2 games in a row. He's had monster puck battle wins like that deserve their own little highlight reel. Moving on to the
That was
overtime
three
goal.
separate puck battles in a row, really. Like he just
Go ahead.
stayed with the play and he stayed with the play and he stayed with the play and he beat off like two or three different Montreal checkers in the process. And a couple times I thought, oh, he's lost that battle. And then he somehow stayed on the puck and he wound up feeding it back to Barry, who fed it over to Nurse for that rocket that hit. I call it the joint between the crossbar and the post. And the got a little piece of it on the way in, but that could have been the game right there with about 20 seconds left.
Yeah, it was a really fine play. It would have been a great way to win the game, but we came up with an even better way to win the game in some ways because the amount of skill slash courage that Draisaitl showed on the winning goal was impressive to say the least. Tyson Barrie allows Cole Caulfield in a little too tight. It wasn't quite a grade A shot. It was from the high slot, but it was a little too close for my liking. Got a very difficult shot on Mike Smith, which Mike Smith fought off. And Caulfield, he is a good player, isn't he, Bruce? I mean, there's been this debate over the years: should the Oilers have taken Broberry or should they have taken Caulfield? Anyway, Caulfield's making his mark now. We'll see. Or
Or
wasn't it? No, that's
Zegras.
a different year. Holloway, or what year are we talking about?
It was
Caulfield was
Zegras. It was
taken.
Zegras that went right after,
Oh, Zegras and then Caulfield.
and then
Caulfield, same
Caulfield.
draft. But some
Hmm.
people thought the Oilers should have taken Caulfield or Zegras. So it was one or the other. Anyway, there was complaining about both. Caulfield is a heck of a player. In the overtime, Mike Smith fights off Caulfield's shot. Tyson Barrie, to his credit, such a fine offensive hockey player, is thinking attack. He gets the puck and he whips that puck, lofts it way up ice on a stretch pass to Draisaitl, which Caulfield tips a little bit, but Draisaitl gets the puck. Draisaitl's at the blue line and moving towards the blue line, and he could easily go offside on this play, but he reaches behind him and scoops the puck up, and with one movement pulls it over the blue line before he crosses the blue line to keep himself offside. In the same movement, just as he's about to take a hit, which he knows he's going to be taking, he makes a perfect pass to Cahoon, Draisaitl, he knows he's there because Leon Draisaitl has eyes of 500 eyes in his head, and he puts it over. Perfect pass, perfect heat on the pass to Cahoon, who makes a really fine play himself. It's not the kind of play I'm expecting from. I'm almost expecting Tobias Reederhands from Cahoon at this point, but he makes an excellent play, deking the goalie. I think it's a backhand to forehand and puts it in. So and Leon for all his trouble, Leon then takes a pretty hard hit. Fantastic
Yeah,
play,
from
fantastic
Big
player.
Sherrod. Hey, what I liked about the play there was that Barry sent a looked like a well placed aerial pass to Draisaitl steaming up the wing, and I thought it might be a breakaway. Like I thought he was behind the defenseman, and Caulfield just waved at it with his stick and got a piece of it, and he didn't stop the pass, but he deflected it so that instead of being in front of Draisaitl, it came up behind him. And just how quickly Leon adjusted to what may have been a breakaway pass for him to instead having to control the play and then make a different play to send a teammate in also on a breakaway. And he just adapted to the change in circumstances like a real pro. And of course, he is one. And that was the play that made the goal that made the win.
Indeed. A comment from someone by the name of Puffy Lover says, "Do we have an update on Holloway's injury lately?" Um, I don't know if the last I saw was earlier this week. There was a tweet about Holloway practicing on the ice with Bakersfield. I don't know if he played his first game yet or not. Do you know that, Bruce? Have they played?
I think his first game is going to be Thursday. And I heard Jay Woodcroft on Bob Stauffer's Oilers Now on Monday. And the indication I got was that Dylan Holloway was going to go right in between uh, uh, the two big guns on the first line, Cooper Marody and Tyler Benson,
Makes sense.
where McLeod had played. So they haven't really filled that spot, and they're going to give him a look there from the sounds of it. And that sounds great. They have 3 games in 4 days this weekend to close out their season against Henderson Silver Knights, the farm team of Vegas Golden Knights, with first place on the line.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
they're still in the hunt, and they're also going to have a small playoffs down there in the Western Pacific Division of the AHL. So all that means a little bit more experience for all the guys, but especially for Dylan Holloway, that's a good thing. Get him a few games of pro hockey.
Hopefully he's good to go. He's been off the ice for a while, but his talent is immense. Speed is immense. Fast player, aggressive player. We'll see how that goes. I suspect it will go well. Bruce, let's move on to the bad thing portion of the podcast. What is your bad thing?
Well, I got two bad things, but they're both kind of the same thing. Bad turnovers by Oilers defensemen, leading directly to goals. One by Tyson Barrie, who under pressure fired a very prayer type pass right into his own slot, where Cole Caulfield, the new sniper extraordinaire of the Habs, was hanging out. And Caulfield, I'm not sure if he even took time to thank Barry for the gift before he made the quick deposit past Mike Smith. It was just like Barry passed it to Caulfield, and Caulfield shot and scored. Well, good pass if you're playing for the other team. If you're playing for the Oilers, not so good. And then there was an ugly turnover by Caleb Jones on the 3-3, where a puck skipped by Ethan Bear and it went to Jones. And I'm still, what the heck happened there, David? It looked like he almost double hit it. Like he tried to shoot it and he caught it with his own stick and he just sort of turned it backwards, and Montreal was on it. This time they had to make a couple passes before they put it in the net, but it was just
Who double
a
hit it,
play.
Bruce Jones?
Jones.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think he tried to pass it and it got tipped immediately.
by a Montreal guy in front of him.
Yeah,
I was looking
yeah.
for that.
That's
Like
that's
I wasn't sure if he just kind of whiffed it and they kind of caught it with the backhand on the way down, or if the other guy got a piece of it. Because
yeah. I saw it
anyway,
as it picked off. This is as a terrible men's league defenseman as I am. That happens to me about 15 times a game, where
hmm
where I think I'm making a pass and they pick it off my hockey stick like that. So that's what I saw. Maybe it was a little PTSD on my part, but that's how I saw the play.
unfortunately, it's about Exhibit Q on Jones' rap sheet of plays why um, head coach Dave Tippett doesn't trust this player as much as he might, because he keeps making these glaring mistakes that wind up in the back of Edmonton's net, and this was another one of those. And he's got to iron those errors out of his game, and I'm not seeing enough progress. I'm seeing good plays from the guy, but there's these as I say glaring mistakes that occur on too regular a basis, and too often they end up with a -1. I actually thought both he and Bear looked real bad on that play, but
Yeah,
particularly Jones.
Bear didn't
So
stick with his man on that play. Bruce, I'm glad that you're the one criticizing Jones tonight because I feel like I've raised it too often this year. And maybe I'm just reacting to like there is a contingent of fans on the Oilers right now who think Jones is maybe the best, like one of the best defensemen on the team, or it's just crazy talk to think about him not in the lineup. And so I don't want to address that. Like people are entitled to their opinions, and I find that with defensemen, especially because the statistics are particularly crappy for rating defensemen, opinions about
Hmm.
defensemen are all over the place. It's the one
Right.
area where we are least guided, I think, by good statistical evidence in the generally available stats. But
Yeah.
there are numbers that people invest a lot in, and there's a group of fans who think Jones is really good based on those numbers. We have, you know, our numbers are based on video review. They're just based on looking at the scoring chances for and against, and like a really like an honest, heartfelt attempt. Like we want to get this right. We go back and forth. I'm not trying to pick on players. We want to get it right. And what we've seen with Jones and Barrie, both of them, and they've come up repeatedly in the podcast, is these guys make a lot of defensive mistakes. And in the playoffs, wow, you can't have it. You can't have
Yeah.
turnovers like that costing you goals against. And so, Slater Cuckoo is going to play, I guess, this coming game or the next game, the game against Vancouver. Tippett mentioned he might play, and we'll see how
Hmm.
that goes. I mean, Chris Russell, if he's healthy, is obviously he's no Caleb Jones moving the puck. He's not even close. Caleb Jones can really make a pass. And again, if you have listened to this podcast, heading into this year, I was really bullish on Jones because he's such a fine puck moving defenseman, and I didn't
Hmm.
see this kind of jitteriness on defense. I don't think it was there last year as much or the year before, but he struggled, and if he can get it together in the playoffs, that'd be great. And same with Tyson Barrie, get it together in the
Hmm.
playoffs, buckle down, don't make those mistakes early in the game, anytime in the game, and we'll all be happy. My bad
Yeah.
thing, Bruce.
Agreed. Hmm.
My bad thing. Montreal rested a lot of players and just tons of players. Jeff Petrie, Tyler Toffoli. There's also guys injured right now. Who knows how much they're injured? They probably are injured. Shea Weber, Price. Who else we got? Gallagher. He's injured. That's for sure.
Yes.
It's just so they probably had, I don't know, half their team out tonight, and it was their B team tonight. So that's one way of approaching a game like this. Heading into the playoffs, rest a lot of guys, and it could also be the case that Montreal's just a lot more banged up than the Oilers are right now. And the Oilers did sit Kailer Yamamoto, and because he's banged up, and maybe none of the other
Hmm.
Oilers are really nursing any major injuries. Maybe they're all good to go. Although what we hear, the hockey word is at this time of year, every player is banged up and nursing an injury, right? How many times have we heard that?
Million.
So I think I would have preferred to see Dave Tippett take that to heart, and especially when it, they Montreal put in this aggressive grinder. What's his name? Delzeal.
Bill
Eh,
Zeal. Yeah, he played 2/3 of the Montreal power play with 4 minutes to go in the game. I was
So
shocked by that.
he's an aggressive young player trying to make a mark. And
Hmm.
initially it looked like he might have hit Mike Smith in the head
Hmm.
with his skate. I think there was contact there, but it turns out what Tippett said after the game and Louis DeBrusk said during the broadcast is that he had shot snow into Mike Smith's face. So that's what was causing Smith's agitation during the game. But the play brought to mind to me, like, why is Mike Smith even playing? There's one guy that the Oilers cannot afford to lose for the playoffs. They just cannot afford
There's
to,
about
to
four
not
guys,
have
but
Mike
he's
Smith.
one
He's
of them.
so crucial. And to just the thought that he could have been lost. You could, in a nothing game at the end of the
Hmm.
year, he could be injured. Why are you risking that? Does he really need to stay sharp by having that game? Is that really crucial? Because if it isn't, sit him. Don't play him. And I didn't like that. I didn't think Mike Smith should have had any place in that game.
He didn't look that sharp in this game, to be frank.
He didn't either.
But he got the job done, I guess, in the end. But yeah, the NHL supposedly they have this rule against the number of guys you can call up after the trade deadline. It's only supposed to be four. And I'm not sure what happened to that because yesterday the Boston Bruins played something like 17. They sat something like 17 of their regular players, and they had nobody left that was they're you could recognize names of guys that were in their system, and there was more than one guy whose name I just didn't ring a bell at all. And somehow that four-man rule has seemed to have bit the dust this year. But I expect on Saturday we may see more of that. I anticipate that we might see. Well, you mentioned Kukuk. I think we may see Bouchard in that game, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But uh, there's. It sounds like it's full speed ahead with the main guys, though. And I mean, to um, Tippett's credit, he cut McDavid down to 15 minutes and 12 seconds tonight, which is lowest ice time he's had in a long time, I think. But Draisaitl played 21. Nurse played almost 25. Barrie played 24. It didn't look too different from game in March or April.
What do you
You
think?
kind
Do
of
you think
wonder.
I'm going too hard on Tippett here for Plainsmith, or do you generally agree, or what's your?
Well, Smith better not be playing on Saturday. Let's put it that way. If they want him playing one of the last three games, okay. Enough though. One's enough. They asked Tippett in the post game if he would be using Staylock on Saturday, and he said it wasn't the plan. So it doesn't sound like we'll be seeing Staylock, but we
Oh,
might see
well,
Koskinen.
I agree with that because I think Koskinen needs. He's got
Hmm.
some bugs in his game. He still needs to work out.
Hmm.
They're going to probably, if they go on a long playoff run, Bruce, they're probably going to have to turn to Mikko Koskinen in a game or two. So and he's going to have to win. So I think that's a good idea to play Koskinen on Saturday night.
Even in a short playoff run, because the Canadian division is starting several days behind the others, like uh, st- playoffs in the States are starting on Saturday, and the regular season in Canada isn't running down until next Wednesday. And I think they'll play Wednesday afternoon, the last regular season game, and they'll start the playoffs Wednesday night. So uh, the the Oilers will get a decent amount of rest. But once those playoffs start, it wouldn't be surprising to me if there was a couple of back-to-backs in the North Division to kind of get Canada caught up to the States. And if you're playing back-to-backs and your goalie's 39 years old, then your backup better be ready to roll.
Mark Simpson, who's watching, is asks, doesn't Smith tend to do better the more he plays? What would you say to that, Bruce?
If you're talking about the 30-year-old Mike Smith, I'd say yes. This Mike Smith, I think he responds well to playing a lot, but you don't want to overdo it at that age. Like, I wouldn't want to see the guy playing more than 2 games a week. I think that's a
Yeah.
nice number for him, and there's no real need to go beyond that. And he's shouldered more than his share of the load since he came back. He's basically been starting 3 out of 4. So in a
He,
lot of 4 game weeks that he plays three. So that, he's getting lots of ice time.
I would say at this age, probably at any age, he plays best when he's healthy.
Yeah.
And that's got to be the prime directive right now for the Oilers is a healthy Mike Smith. He had a terrible streak of games not last December, but previous year December when he got injured,
Hmm.
or looked like he was banged up and injured. And thank goodness it was Dave Tippett who believed so strongly in Mike Smith. He was going to stick with him no matter what because I would have sent him to the minors probably if I was running the team. So good thing I wasn't.
Hmm.
They could make that people could make that point repeatedly, and that would be a fair comment.
Hmm.
The he But when he's been healthy in the last 2 or 3 years, even as he has had poor save percentages of 900, around 900 previous to this year for 2 years running, he's had great streaks, and he can get hot and he can play great. So we I guess we should have a little faith in Dave Tippett and Mike Smith that maybe they know what's best for Mike Smith, and have got this figured out and dialed in. So I'll leave it at that. What's your number?
Yeah, my number is 48, and that is the number of points scored by defenseman Tyson Barrie this season. He is the Free agent, 1 year, $3.75 million contract that was signed on day two of free agency back on October 10th. And why 48 is significant is that with the 2 points he got today that raised him to 48, it put him one ahead New York Rangers Adam Fox and into the NHL lead for point scoring by a defenseman, 48 points. And the Oilers have one game to play. Barrie's got 48. Adam Fox has 47. His season's done. Victor Hedman has 45. His season's done. Chris Letang has 45. His season's done. John Carlson has 44. His season's done. And the only guy really with a crack at him is Cale Makar of Colorado, who in playing just 42 games this year has 43 points. So he's a point a game defender, Cale Makar, and a pistol of a player.
Yeah.
And they have 2 games left. So it's not impossible that Makar could get 5 points, 6 points in 2 games. But right now, the odds are very strong in favor that the Oilers will have the first defenseman on their team to lead the NHL in scoring since Paul Coffey in 1985-86, when Coffey scored 48 goals, not points, and 90 assists for 138 points in one of the greatest seasons in the history of defensemen in the National Hockey League. Tyson Barrie is not that guy, but he came to town with a reputation of being able to put points on the board, and he has done it. Doesn't get a lot of credit for it in some corners, but he sure just keeps racking up the points. And you know, David, I was saying to my wife, we were watching the face-off for overtime, and Barrie was out there instead of Nurse. Usually they start overtime with Nurse, and Barrie was out there, and Draisaitl came over and he put his hand behind his glove and he said something to Barrie. And I said to my wife, Leon just said to Barrie, "Get me the puck, and I'll get you your point to put you ahead in the scoring race." And like 30 seconds later, it was a done deal, and that's exactly how it worked out. So I was laughing pretty good at that moment. But pretty significant accomplishment, leading all defensemen in point scoring.
Pretty good thing
Oh,
on your resume when you're looking for a new contract too,
yeah, exactly.
because NHL teams tend to pay for points, and
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to get a payday. There was some
Somewhere.
concerns. Oscar Clefbaum leaving the power play. You know, he had done
Mm-hmm.
such a fine job as the metronome at the top, passing the puck with such
Yep.
consistency, stroking those passes to McDavid and Draisaitl. Tyson Barrie's power play is almost every bit as good as the power
Different.
play last year. They're
Yeah.
at 28.1%, Bruce,
Mm-hmm.
first in the NHL again. So we're going to go on a historic run of power playing here, and it'd be, we'll see if Barry's still on it next year, but if he's not, well, I suspect we'll see Nurse or Evan Bouchard. So I think the good times are going to keep rolling, but let's see what happens in the playoffs first, because everything can change in the playoffs. And if
Mm-hmm.
Tyson Barrie comes up and has a monster playoffs, that could change the Oilers' thinking on him as well. And we'll
Yeah.
see about that.
Yeah, we'll see where he gets the monster contract, but I mean, if you just look at it in terms of this year, the 1 year deal he signed, and the niche that he filled here with Clefbaum being out, and to my mind, Bouchard not yet being ready to take on that magnitude of a role with the Oilers as a rookie, that would be a very high expectation of Evan Bouchard, and I have high expectations for Evan Bouchard, but I try and keep him realistic. Uh, I think Barry's delivered the goods, and it may be a one and done, and maybe that's for the best. But as you say, if he goes to the free agent pool as being the NHL points leader in defensemen, someone somewhere is going to pay him, and we'll see where that winds up being. But 48 points in Edmonton, and unless Makar really closes the gap on him, I'm thinking on Saturday, if he's out in front and it's a done deal, he might sit for Bouchard in that game Saturday against Vancouver. We'll see how they play that.
Bruce, my number is 2. And this is in trying to put Connor McDavid's unreal season in some perspective. And my number 2 has to do with dominance in scoring in the Art Ross race for the top point scorer in the NHL. Only 2 players have had clearly better dominance in any single season than Connor McDavid this year. And I define dominance this way in point scoring. It's just how much do you beat your rivals by? How much do you beat the
Hmm.
next guys down? And you can either just compare it to the guy who's just behind you, like
Right.
Connor McDavid compared to Leon Draisaitl.
Mm.
But a reader by the name of Darren DeLiba actually compared McDavid to the compared every scorer each year in NHL history to the next four guys
Okay.
behind him in the race. And I think that's the superior way to do it. So you're taking, in this case, you would take McDavid and you'd compare him to Draisaitl, Marner, Matthews, and Kane, is it?
Marchand,
Or
is it?
Marchand, whoever the next four are. You'd average those four, their points, and then you compare them to McDavid's point
Okay.
scoring total. So when Darren DeLiba did that for this season and for every other season in NHL history, only two players in NHL history have had a bigger margin over the pack in scoring, Bruce. And those two players are,
Oh,
not
pretty good.
surprisingly, Wayne Gretzky, who did it 6 times, and Gordie Howe, who did it once. Gordie Howe in 52, 53,
1952, 53, 90,
95,
95
95
points.
points, and the next four guys had an average of 62.5 points, according to Darren's work.
Yeah.
Gretzky, that was Howe had 52% more points than
Right.
the next four. In Gretzky's best year, Bruce, 86, 87, he had 183 points.
Hmm.
The next four guys averaged 107 points. Gretzky had a 71% better than
Right.
the next guys. 71%. So, and in Gretzky's other 6 seasons when he had these super dominant seasons, he was at 71%, 69%, 67%, 63%, 61%, and 54%. That's how much he was ahead of the pack. So where does McDavid fit in? Connor McDavid this year, Bruce, and this was done before tonight's game. He had
Right.
103. So this is when he had 103 points, not
102.
105. He had 103, and the pack was averaging 71. 44% more points than the other guys, than the other top scoring group in the NHL. Connor McDavid, 44% more. That is such an
Unreal.
unreal number. And again,
Hmm.
only in NHL history have ever been more dominant on the attack. What we've witnessed this year is historic and utterly special.
I got into a conversation on Twitter with someone saying that if you take away Draisaitl as a teammate, that McDavid is farther ahead of any other player on any other team except Gretzky. And I countered with the 1952-53 season, which is why I have these numbers on the tip of my tongue. Gordie Howe, 49 goals, 95 points. Ted Lindsay, second place, 71 points, but of course he was a teammate, line mate of Gordie Howe's. And third place, Maurice the Rocket Richard, way back at 61 points. So Gordie's margin over any non-Red Wing player was over 50%, 95 to 61. I think it was 52%. No, the method that you said, averaging the next four, it was also in that range of 50 odd percent. And just to put a little perspective on that, Ted Lindsay, who finished second, and Maurice the Rocket Richard, who finished third, were so great that they both have major trophies named after them today. Maybe it's high time we named a major trophy after the great Gordie Howe.
Indeed. Good idea. Good idea. Yeah. I mean, I'm not big on taking out the teammates. I mean, because it's not like,
Hmm.
here's the thing about Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They're both competing for the scoring championship. In that sense, you know, they're on the same team, but they're fighting for this honor themselves. But when you're with a great teammate, he also helps you score. So it's a two-way street in a lot of ways. Like
Right, of
there is
course.
back and forth on this. It's just not Connor McDavid dragging along Leon Draisaitl the whole way. I've noticed a
No.
few good plays from Leon Draisaitl this year that wouldn't have been goals if
Hmm.
not for his, execution or like shooting, his unbelievable passing, which has these have all benefit Connor McDavid. So there's some people who
Oh, yeah.
wanna just say you should, that's unfair to McDavid because he's and unfair to, I guess, Gretzky because Yari Curry was his line
Whew,
mate. But
was he ever?
it's it's so common to see. It's so common to see the second guy
Hmm.
in scoring is a teammate.
Detroit,
Like
the whole production line was 1, 2, 3 one year.
yeah,
So, and in 86, 87, Gretzky's most dominant season by margin of victory, at least as a percentage, he won by 79 points one year. He only won by 75. But that was a year that scoring fell off, and Wayne went from over 200 points to a mere 183. But the second place scorer dropped all the way from 141 to 108. Like the whole league, the scoring started to come down in 86, 87, and Curry had 108, and Lemieux and Marc Messier tied for third at 107. So the Oilers had three in the top four in 86, 87, and they were still, the predominant scoring team in the NHL at that time, of course. And that was Gretzky's last scoring title as an Oiler. The next year he had a couple injuries, and Mario went supernova, and that was the end of his seven in a row Art Ross trophies.
all right. To end off tonight, Bruce, we're just going to go through a few comments from readers. Okay,
Okay. Well, let you
Chad
read them,
Nygaard,
David. I can't see the comments. I can see the YouTube, but the comments are just, I can't see them at all. So,
you may need to make your screen bigger. Just pull it out wider. They're on the
okay.
side, and if you pull it, if you
Oh,
just
okay. On the side.
Chad Nygaard says,
Eh? Okay.
asks Bruce, do you see him now? Can the Oil
Yeah.
beat the Leafs, Bruce? Can the Oil beat the Leafs? Any thoughts, Bruce?
Yes, I have thoughts. Yes, the Oilers can beat the Leafs. I'm not sure that I would give them 50-50 on it, but I wouldn't sort of say, oh, well, once we get to the Leafs, we're done. The Leafs arguably have a deeper team than the Oilers, uh, and they have a couple of transcendental stars at the top of their team too, in Matthews and Marner. Tavares isn't so bad either. And where Toronto has the advantage, I think, is they have a deeper second line than Edmonton. But Toronto's got no McDavid. I mean, due respect to Matthews, and I got plenty of respect for Matthews. He's no Connor McDavid. And I would say Mitch Marner is no Leon Draisaitl, and that's with due respect to Mitch Marner. But I think the Oilers have the highest of high-end talent in the league.
It's it's going to be a very close series when they play, if they play. I hope that the Leafs and Montreal have the all-time most trench warfare, like 7 game brutal playoff hockey series that is imaginable and is historic in terms of its physical play, and soften the whoever wins up for the Oilers. I'm glad Edmonton is not playing the Habs in the first round. I think it's gonna be black and blue hockey. Brian Burke's gonna like those games, and I think it would have taken something out of. Let me shut this off. Would have taken something out of the Oilers if that had happened. Bruce, the Leafs have incredible forward lines. They really are stacked at the forward lines, and probably position to position comparisons. They probably come out ahead. Maybe 10 out of 12. But those two that they don't come out ahead on are McDavid and Draisaitl, and those guys I just think they're gonna come up monster big. I think we're gonna see something special that we have never seen before from Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in these playoffs. So I wouldn't be betting against them. Do you see the
Not
comments
the
numbers?
not the No, my computer is just as slow as anything, and I've noticed this when we've used this new program before, that
Yeah,
anything I'm using on the other side is just molasses.
it's a
It's like
memory
I got a
hog.
1200 baud modem or something over there.
Yeah.
It's I'm trying not to load.
Dante Sutton says, "Pray that Mike Smith doesn't have a Rolison incident." Dante Sutton, we will indeed be praying that. Let me just see if there's any other comments. There's lots, but we're just getting used to this commenting part, and till hopefully Bruce you'll be up and running too, because
Yeah,
it's
I'd
hard for
like to
me to go
pick and choose some of
scroll
them as
and
well, of course, but I'll
scroll
read them
and talk.
later.
All right. Let's leave it there, Bruce. What we'll
Okay.
do is, as people are asking about the Jets and about the Oilers and the Jets,
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about it. I just want to look a little bit more closely about where Winnipeg is right now. Frankly, I haven't
Right.
seen them in a while. They finally clinched a playoff spot, but so I don't really have much to say about them until I dig into that a little bit more. But we'll be doing a Jets Oilers preview podcast for sure,
Yeah.
and we'll be
Maybe
getting
with
into
all
that at
three
that
of
time.
us, Dave.
Yeah, with Kurt as well. That'd be a really good idea. Alrighty,
So
Bruce. Any other
we got
thoughts? Anything you'd like
one
to
more
add?
game Saturday afternoon, 1:30 p.m. afternoon game against the
All
Canucks.
right.
What could possibly go wrong? Go wrong. Go wrong.
I wonder
I'd
if we'll
say,
see McDavid and Draisaitl.
well, we'll see. I think
We'll see.
their lead in the scoring race is pretty safe.
Connor, I think he's
On the other
safely reached
hand,
that 100-point mark.
I'm battling tooth and nail in my two hockey pools, and I got Connor in both of them. So I want him to keep playing, and I want him to play 25 minutes on Saturday. But that's just me.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Bruce. Thanks for talking tonight.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.